All right, Fred, how you doing?
Not too bad, are you, Ricky? All right.
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for joining me today. So, we're going to record a little podcast here. Just give us a little introduction. So, tell me a bit about yourself and how we met.
Fred Steer. I'm commercial director for Sleep and Health Clinic, which are a sleep. They're a specialist sleep clinic. They're the only specialist sleep clinic outside of the NHS. But my history is sales and market for 30 years. You can't tell by my age, can you? But yeah, so I had a part of the reason I'm passionate about working for sleep and health is I did have a heart attack in my early years at 42, down to hereditary issues. But subsequently found out it's just down to lifestyle. And that's how I met you, Ricky. Part of my journey through sleep and health, joining up with other companies that I think are on the same page as our business, Sleep
Yeah,
and Health Clinic.
I think it was actually LinkedIn, wasn't it, when we started?
Where's
So,
LinkedIn? Yeah,
I think you
yeah.
dropped me a message. I've just been kind of busy launching Medi MOT, and you reached out, and I just thought there'd be really good potential collaboration. Like with sleep, there's obviously poor sleep is multifactorial, and it's very easy just for often people just get dumped on sleeping tablets for this kind of thing. But actually, is it a respiratory issue? Is it a psychiatric or
Right, true.
psychological issue? Is it a medical issue? And when it was actually a breath of fresh air when I found out that actually, you're dissecting what is the actual cause of someone's poor sleep and getting them to see the right type of person. So it really kind of resonated with me. And obviously, from the point of view of the blood testing that I'm doing with Medi MOT and the health checking, there's a potential collaboration there in terms of getting some of your patients need testing to see if there's any medical cause for them having poor sleep.
Yeah, and to be fair, Medi MOT was the thing that caught my eye. There's a lot of blood testing companies out there, but they maybe go back in my shell a little bit. It's not that I've got any disrespect for the primary care sector. It's part of the reason why I'm here today. Part of the reason why my daughter's here today. It was early identification that we found out she had cancer, but she's all cured now. But also the NHS, they're amazing, but I think they're under so much pressure. And I think companies like us and people like me, and telling people my journey. Everybody's journey is different, but if we can inspire people and take some pressure off that valuable system we've got called the NHS, I think it's great as well.
Yeah, just to give people a bit of background. So when we started messaging each other, and then we obviously had our meeting, I found out a bit about your history. And actually, for me, creating MediMOT is basically giving people a really easy opportunity to just get checked. You get your car checked every year. Why don't you get your body checked? Things can go wrong if you don't, if you miss certain things, which can be silent, and they're really easy to check. And I know you can go to your normal GP, and I encourage people to go to their GPs and get these things done. But the reality is that it's quite difficult to get through. There's lots of weights involved. And when you actually get a blood test done, you don't actually know potentially what blood tests you're getting. And I just, I'm on the front line and I don't have time to explain everything to everyone. With the volume of stuff coming in, I would just, I'm desperate to give people a bit more time. And so I created this to basically take away all the pain points of getting a blood test done. And yeah, so that's why it came about. But in us talking together, and I found out about your story because actually one of the difficulties is that people don't realize what could happen if they miss something. And then when you told me about what happened with you, I thought it would be really helpful to share that story. So tell us a bit. I'm talking too much. Tell us about
No, it's usually me that talks too much, Rick.
your
No, to be fair, again, why I joined up with you is because I looked at your background. You're still very much in the NHS sector. Your mantra is that you want to help people, and your business will actually help the NHS. I think it's brilliant story. But the same token, I think part of the reason why I like services like yours is if it was around then, um, I do think I could have turned my heart attack around. I did go to the GP 6 months before, find out I had a heart attack, but they gave me antibiotics for something that was the first sign of diabetes. And he said, look, you got to lose a bit of weight. And me being a little angry, Fred, when I was in sales and marketing then, just walked out and didn't come back.
yeah.
Um, I don't think they've got the time, but when I went back in and with pains in my chest, They did send me home first of all with high cholesterol and diabetes, which was just mad. But I came back in 10, 20 minutes later, and I had a mild heart attack, and it was a mild heart attack. I think if I'd have had something like this that was, more widely known back then, I'm sure it was around then, but I didn't know about it.
Mm,
Rather than using my private health via the only referral system, which was GP,
yeah,
I might have come to somebody like you and had a choice, and that's the key. It's taken me. I mean, it probably took me 13 years to put the weight on, and it's taken me 30 years to take it off. But the journey's been amazing. I mean, the first 2 years, it was traumatic. I mean, I was 42 for God's sake.
yeah,
How
opener.
can that happen to me? I mean, I know I smoked. I was quite active. I had a gym membership that I hardly ever used. Joking.
Yeah,
But it was a journey that I questioned myself, and once I got out of that rut, um, the journey since probably after about a year, 2 years, has been really enjoyable. From not doing any running, I did a half Ironman last year. And this is the key, is that I'm trying to get back. I want to make sure that I get back. I think I am now, but few more miles to go yet. But I want to get back to the prevention
yeah,
um, pathway.
100%.
And I
We,
don't.
yeah.
Sorry,
No,
carry on.
well, the NHS is, as you say, I'm absolutely passionate about the NHS. I work in the NHS 3 days a week still, long days. But it is pressured and it is all about cure rather than prevention. And there is a lot of drive at the moment to start pushing towards that prevention piece. Find out things early and take your health graph on a different tangent when actually it's silently getting something could be happening, when actually you could get in there early and turn things around before they even go down that road. And my whole job as a doctor, I tell this to all my patients, my whole job as a doctor is to stop your arteries from getting clogged up. And there's obviously different things that can cause arteries from getting clogged up: blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, being a bloke, smoking. Some things you can control, some things you can't control. And my analogy that I give people is we've just got to try and reduce your risk factors in each of these areas, because they all work together in combination to get these arteries getting blocked up. And it doesn't cause any problems until that day a heart attack or a stroke comes. I mean, in some ways you were lucky it was a mild one and it gave you a wake up call to take you on a different path, right?
Absolutely. And to be fair, do I regret what I was doing when we had our first baby? I was doing the same things before. Playing the same things after than I was doing before. And the one key thing was I didn't realise then, and I do realise now because we're working for, is sleep. When you don't sleep, then you get up the next day, you're a bit tired, and you think, oh, you've reached to that smoothie that's very innocent, but really it's not. It's raising your sugar levels. I'll have a pasty probably every day. Now I only have a pasty when I go to Cornwall, as a treat, and that's the key. When the treat becomes a habit, the habit becomes a problem, and that's my ethos around things. Before I had a heart attack, um, my only stress outlet was, so I'm going to have a drink, it's going out with
Yeah,
mates.
yeah,
But now my outlook is go for a run, take the dog for a walk.
yeah.
I think it's having more tools in your armory. And again, coming back to a MediMOT, if I'd have known about this type of service back then, and I'd have had that indifferent experience with my GP, I might have gone down a different direction. Hindsight, all that rubbish. I don't regret anything that been through, because the journey has been excitable
Yeah.
after that first 2 years. But even that first year or so, part of the reason why I went out to the holistic field, which you are in that holistic field, really, if you think about it, you might be medical, but you're prevention, and prevention is holistic. But I reached out to a nutritionist, and I found out if I was on a diet that was being advised back then, I'd probably still be diabetic and on the way to maybe on early set dementia. But again, I don't blame anybody for this other than myself.
Well, do you know what? In a
It's down to lifestyle.
Yeah, and in a weird way, I guess you could look at yourself as saying, well, the luckiest you could have been would have been to, in your 30s, to have found out what was going on in the background to do something about it. But you're actually the second luckiest, which is you've had an event which was the wake up call, and now it's taken you to a path of a much healthier lifestyle. As you say, your mindset has changed, and whereas before you'd be reaching for Greg's and the boozer, now now you're going for a run, and because that thing has happened. But what I'm trying to do is let people in on that early, get the test done. And actually it's what you say about the time, like, what we've built into the system is getting people to really understand what's going on in their results. People aren't necessarily medically trained. You've got ChatGPT and whatnot, but giving someone a list of numbers is not helpful. I want each patient is individual. We've dealt with you in a very individual way in terms of how you wanted to be treated, and it shouldn't just be one size fits all. And so we will always work with patients to. It's our responsibility to guide them in terms of medical knowledge as to what could happen if we don't do something about this. But the choice of what to do afterwards is a negotiation and a chat and just finding what's best.
It's a weird thing. You just mentioned something and I picked up on it. That's how my brain works. Maybe I should have been a doctor. Joking.
I don't recommend it.
You say the first stage and the second stage. I've never thought about it, because if I could have got the first stage, that early intervention, and not had the heart attack, my journey would be totally different. And that's the key. My journey was, I had a mild heart attack, partly because I was doing Nurofen with a hangover, and it ruptured one of my smaller arteries. But if I'd trundled on, if I didn't have that second warning, yeah, I'd have trundled on for another 10 years. It might not have been so
So
nice, and the
yeah,
recovery would have been harder. I still think you could do it with
yeah,
the resources, but again, that's the key. I was very lucky. I mean, people say lucky. Well, I have a heart attack. Well, no, I had the resources. I had I had the money. I had private healthcare, but I didn't have an avenue to get that private healthcare. I
yeah,
think now with all these different things, and you said ChatGPT, you gave me some results that I didn't want to look at before speaking to my nutritionist, but I did. And my radar went and laid down a little bit, because I know that what was what I thought was one thing, but when I read up on it, I still didn't believe it until I spoke to you and my nutritionist. You've got to take two different opinions. At the end of the day, it is about reducing the risk, and I don't want to be a burden. Not only to not only to the NHS until I need to be, because there will be a day that I need to be, I'm sure.
yeah,
I'll be on my motorbike, or my push bike, or breaking my leg, or God forbid when I'm older. But I want to make sure that I'm not a burden to my family. I
yeah,
really do. And I just think I've got a work-life balance now that's better. I've got a 80-20%, um, good and enjoyment. It tipped over the edge a little bit when my daughter was ill.
yeah,
But again, that's needs must. But I still had that other little tool.
yeah,
Rather than having a drink when I was stressed about my daughter, I went out for a run.
yeah,
And that's the thing, isn't it? I never thought I'd do it. But again, coming back to why I liked Medi MOT is that, that's the word MOT. You see it everywhere with your cars and whatever. But that's what attracted. And I said, I looked at your background and what I liked about you rather than some of these other VC organizations. You're still very much in the sector that I've got a real soft spot for.
yeah,
And, when I hear things, like the NHS is broken, I think it's people like me that are breaking it, and also maybe some systems are. And I think whatever we can do individually, but as
yeah,
a group, Sleep and Health Connect, educating people like yourself, trying to educate, but also maybe get people at that first level that I didn't even think about. I did think about really, but I didn't think about at the time. But getting people to think about if they did have a sign on their leg for diabetes, go and speak to somebody like you if you're worried about going to your GP. Again, only from experience, Ricky. It's not like I've got anything against my GP, but I'm in one group. I've had a heart attack. I've got high cholesterol. Well, no, it's not. I was 42 when I had that heart attack. I wasn't 52. It might have been different then. And I say again, everybody goes through stages of their life, and I think we had children later in life. If we'd have had children earlier, would have happened then? I don't know. There's always against having children later and earlier, isn't there? It's
we
all
shouldn't have
these
had any
things.
at all.
They're decisions. But what I've learned over the last year as well, working with Sleep and Health Clinic, is Dr. Sarah McNellis, like yourself, you're inspirational, both of you. You've opened my eyes.
You say that
um,
to all the doctors.
no, you've opened my eyes. Honestly, you've opened my eyes to other avenues. As I said, I've got white coat syndrome. I do my own blood pressures at home. Having something like this, am I worried about going to my GP? Yeah, I am, because they might take one indicator because they've been told that's one. If I can keep that I have this check occasionally just to make sure I'm doing the right things, make sure my car, my engine
Yeah.
is still working okay.
And that's
Obviously,
it, isn't
if,
it?
if
Yeah.
there was a big indicator that I had to go back to my GP, I'd be like a rat up a drain pipe. I would
Yeah.
be. So yeah, I'm not, I don't do this to go outside the system because of any other reason. For a check that I'm still going the right way for me and my family. That's it.
Yeah, we just wanted to make it easy. I mean, as I say, I work on the front line in the NHS, and it's hard. It's busy, and there's little time to go round, and it is a frustration when you want to do better for people. You want people to be fully engaged, but you've got a million other things to do, and you physically haven't. It's just not possible to give what you can give to everyone. So I'm not really doing it to save the NHS hand on heart. Obviously, there is a byproduct that it does take pressure off the system. I'm also not interested in dumping back into the system. So if someone sees us and we find an issue, there's means of chatting to me afterwards or chatting to one of the team afterwards to kind of deal with it. But we'd want people to liaise back with their GP. Like, I'm a huge fan of the NHS and really want it to survive. It's difficult to see it on the front line. Things are hard at the moment, but
Well, on that note, I do use I have used other blood checking companies, but what I liked about your approach was that a video straight after. I didn't have to necessarily speak to somebody, but
yeah,
then because there was one indicator you want to talk about, it was that subtle way that you actually brought me back online with you. I think is amazing. I think there are these VC type companies that there's no personality, and maybe that's good that we get on. I'm sure there's patients that you're not going to get on with. I'm sure there's patients that are going to be in denial still. But, for everyone that there are like that, there's everyone that isn't. So, again, at the end of the day, you're a service that I just think supports what the change that we're going through as a healthcare system. But that's both holistic and medical.
yeah,
So yeah, you know, I, I think it's great what you're doing. And I think, doing this video, I was reluctant to doing this years ago because I don't want to have a dirty washing in public. But it's not about dirty washing. It's about the journey I've gone through. Everybody's different. And I think if there's more services like this, not just yours, Ricky, that people can go to just to double check before having to go in the system. Mark my words, once you're in the system, it's very hard to get out of.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can't get insurance anymore.
Hmm.
I really wish that I could have not had that heart attack because I can't get life insurance. I might better get it when actually I'm 50 now, and I'm 55. I can get that insurance without any checks. I would because I'm fine. But no, but the problem is there's so many things that people take for granted. And again, I don't blame that doctor for sending me out being a bit overweight and not seeing a sign of diabetes. It's that he probably gave me his warning. But on that note, when I went into hospital, the guy that gave me the stent, amazing guy, Nick, can't remember his last name. He sat me at the end of my bed. His bedside manner wasn't great.
Hmm.
He told me I was going to be on these tablets and this is going to be the rest of my life.
Yeah,
I don't think he knew me.
yeah,
I had to double check, and it took me a year to actually come out of that and double checked. And, you know, I reversed diabetes within 6 months from there. I came off a number of tablets from there. I'm not going to say which ones, just not for this video.
yeah.
Again, I went from running 5K, 10Ks to then getting COVID. Oh God!
That's
I
a
mean,
whole nother
no,
podcast.
no, but to be fair, I did a run for recovery. Sorry, to raise money for local food banks, and I did like a trail run rather than a normal road run. And I've got hooks in that, and now I'm doing ultras.
Brilliant. It's
I
absolutely
recovered
brilliant.
from COVID because I woke up. If I was still had those underlying health issues, I don't know. We don't know. I mean, I would have had to have the medication to help me through
I
recovery
think
there,
you've
but
done
my own
brilliantly.
system has done
from
that. So yeah,
from where
yeah.
you were, from having a heart attack at 42 to leading a life now where you're coming off medication, but it was that unfortunate wake up call that's taken you down that and other things over the course of time. I think you've done brilliantly. The only potentially better outcome would have been to maybe have found out even earlier, which is
I
what
was
you've
saying,
said. But people don't know. I don't know. I don't. I didn't have a blood test done in my 30s or early 40s. The other day I was seeing a patient who was 46, same age as me, and he come in with a blood pressure of 210 over 130. That's a high blood pressure. This is like something's going to pop. But then it was that wake up call for me. It's like, I'm 46, he's 46. This could be me now. And so, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, all we've tried to do is make it really easy for someone to get checked, make sure everything's okay. As you say with the video interpretation, I guess just design the process like I would want to be dealt with. I want no hassle. I want to just pay the money. I want someone to turn up to take my blood test, and I want to hear the result from someone I trust, who can treat me as an individual person. And I want to see their face. I want them to tell me what's going on. And so that's why we did it that way.
Well, on that note, I used to do the pinprick through one of these check companies. Oh, the stress on that, and trying to get your blood out into one of these little dishes, these
Files,
little
yeah.
vials, what they're called. But the lady came round. Not only was she a local lady, so she knew local people, which was quite cool because I thought she'd come from miles. She was really nice.
Yeah.
It was. I don't like needles, never have. But my missus is fine with it because she gives blood all the time. But even that was quite nice. But again, it's taking that. I mean, maybe it should be a different word, Ricky. I mean, I call them white coat syndrome. I think it's disrespectful to the people that like you are. I've just got a stress level that doesn't like that type of stuff. And again, if I'd have had this service back then, I'm sure it was around then, but it wasn't widely known. I really do believe that I could have reversed it before it
Mm.
happened. And I proved that after the initial years of recovery, because then I reversed diabetes within 6 months. But even one of the tablets I was on, they only gave it to me because I didn't have a high blood pressure,
Mm.
but trying to get off that tablet because one doesn't talk to the other. I had to take my own blood pressures, go back into my doctor, and it was him that suggested, "Would you want to come off them?" I went, "Only if you think so, sir." Because it's a minefield. And again, anybody that are worried about their health, it's easy. Just go online. There's so many companies, not just the Medi MOT out there.
Yeah.
Just do a back check. Well,
Yeah.
why not? If you've got the money and the resources, or the resources and the money, whichever one is saying, well, just try it. You might like it, like Dr. Pepper. Do you remember
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah. So
So
misunderstood.
it could go either way, though, couldn't it? So yeah, no, but I mean, my friend's just gone through it. He's been worried about something. He's used somebody like you. I tried to get him to use Ricky, but he's used somebody before. He's gone straight through to his private health. They've looked at it, and it's not as bad as he first thought. One of my favorite musicians, part of the Clash. If he'd have had this type of service back then, they might have got that he had a dodgy valve of some sort, and he might be still strumming away now, mightn't he? So at the end of the day, progression's the most important thing, and I think at the end of the day, I think even talking to people in the industry and outside, there's a lot more youngsters looking at their house. There's a lot more youngsters telling people at their elders, i.e. their parents, look after yourself. I think there's a move. And I think there's a move towards using companies like you as a check without going into the system. And that's not to hide things. It's just to verify things before you go one way or the other. It's a
We'll just
pathway,
make it
isn't it?
easy. Like,
Yeah.
we're getting I had to get a blood test done, and I did it through my GP. And I love, as I say, I'm a big advocate of the NHS, but actually the pros, I'm time poor, and to put the
Yeah.
request
Yeah.
in, to wait for it to come back, to
Yeah.
pick up the form, I had to
Yeah.
wait about 3 weeks for a blood. I think it was more than that, 3 or 4 weeks to get blood test, and I had to travel to I had to go over half an hour from my house to get to this blood test taken, and then the result came back and it said no action required, and I just think there's a better way. I think. And so that's why I basically tried to remove all of the
It's,
pain. I just
it's
want to
hard.
get
It's
someone
hard.
to come to you, get the test done, and then actually fully understand what's going on, because the doctor's actually speaking to me and guiding me around these numbers and saying, yeah, worry about that, or don't worry about that. You mentioned earlier that the guy found out his test was okay. I want to tell people that it's all okay, and you don't need to come back for a couple of years. You're fine. Don't worry about it. But I also want to help people pick up things that you might have been able to pick up earlier, and that's why I thought your story was so helpful for people to hear.
One thing you touched on there, though, the one thing I don't want to we've got health inequalities in the UK. We all know that, and I don't want people to think that this is actually going to make it worse. I personally think it'll make it better because the resources that people have got will help alleviate pressures in the system. It's not muck around. Together we're stronger. Even with sleep and health, there's a lot of people that will not go to the doctors with sleep issues because something might happen, like their license taken off them. Is that right? Yeah, of course it is, because people can kill somebody. But with a service like yours or Sleep and Health Connect, if somebody can go somewhere just to check if it is or isn't, they might not have sleep issues. They might have a dietary issue. They might have, I don't know, they might have rest. They might be something totally non-relevant to sleep. And that will alleviate the problem because, if you have certain things, if you go down a certain pathway, then if you lose your job, you lose your livelihood, so many things can happen. Again, I think if you've got the resources to use something like this or Sleep and Health Clinic, use it because you're going to be helping other people. You
I do
are, I
love that
think.
about sleep and health. I think it's it's very easy just to paintbrush it all as it's a sleep problem, but actually you've got to dissect it and figure out what is causing someone's poor sleep, and then tailor any intervention based on what their actual problem is. That's simple.
But can they become back to why we wanted to link up? Is because I do think that, we do a pro forma that could generally indicate if somebody's got a sleep issue. It's a lifestyle questionnaire which is done by the universities around the world. It's all clinically proven. But the same token, it might be an issue that we see that they go have to go and do a blood test. It might have no relevance to sleep, and that's what I love about Dr. Sarah McNellis. She's doing this for free, really, and then pointing people to the right pathway. Let's not muck around. There's a lot of areas within hospitals that can only treat the problem. They
Yeah,
can't look at the cause. And again,
yeah,
yours and our service is to try and look at the cause.
yeah,
Look
yeah,
at the cause. Look
absolutely.
at the cause. So yeah, I just think, joined up thinking is the way forward. And I said, will I stop using somebody like your company in the future? I will dig deep, even if I haven't got the money, because I don't want to go into the system until I have to. So I'm not being
I
derogatory.
encourage you to do so.
No, it will be. I guarantee you. And I said, even coming back to your time difference thing, our local GB is amazing. Not only helping me when I had a heart attack, but also helping my daughter. But it takes me 3 weeks sometimes to see my doctor. If I
Yeah,
have to see somebody,
it's
but mark
hard.
my words, if I have to see somebody else as emergency, I'll be straight to my GP.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
just, I like to wait for people that I know. And again, using a service like you, I still know how to get it, warts and all,
yeah,
but it's about talking to somebody you know. And sometimes they can explain it a little bit easier than somebody you
yeah,
don't know. So
yeah.
again, if your service does that, I think the
I
joined
just
up thing is great as well.
communication is like it's the most important thing in medicine is actually kind of connecting with people and just it's simple but just good communication. People all I want my patients to know is I'm doing their best for them, and that that I'm talking on their level because I'm on that level, and we work together just to solve problems. Basically, that's all my job is.
But I think people, I think general public, I think the NHS, primary care, pharmacists, people like yourselves, private practices, I think, and sleep and health clinic. I think there's enough people out there that have got some issues. I don't think we've got to worry about business, have we? But I think what we've got to do is just we've all got to join up and think about you know well-being. It's an
Yeah,
overused
just
word, overused word. But if you're looking at well-being as a joint effort, not only does it have a knock-on effect with the system, but it also makes people money, but it also gives people better home lives. At the end of the day, that's what my journey has changed massively over 13 years. Again, up to it, I was enjoying it. I enjoyed it massively up to my heart attack, clearly. Um, it was a bit hard for the first year or so, but I've really enjoyed the journey out. And I have a better work life balance now. I have a better food to health balance. I still enjoy myself thoroughly. I won't say how, but tippled. But yeah, and I'm more
Save that
active.
for the post watershed podcast.
Absolutely. But yes, no, I think it's great what you're doing, Ricky. I think it's amazing.
And we should tell the listeners as well that you've taught me how to poach an egg in the microwave, which well, you haven't quite taught
No,
me
not quite
because
yet. We'll have to do
they're
another
still
video for that.
exploding, but I'm on my way there to learn.
All right, cool.
I'll report back later. But Fred, thank you. Go on.
Any other questions? Are you all right?
No, I think that's really all I want to do is let people know that this can happen. Like, often someone or a friend of a friend and you hear it. But when you said to me I had a heart attack when I was 42, I was like, well, you are the reason why I'm actually creating this service so people can find these things out early and get valuable insights into their health and hopefully take them down a different trajectory. Nobody wants to be, if your artery is getting clogged up and you have a stroke, you lose half of your body. That affects you, affects your family, affects your life insurance. You don't see these things in your 30s, 40s, 50s, but you could see them at some point down the line. It can come earlier than you expect.
I think also if we didn't have things like this, it would start creeping into 20s. That's my belief, especially with the ultra processed foods that we've got. We have to change, and I think we're on the change. And you can see it. There's loads more companies that really want to do what you're doing. I think there's some companies that want to do just to make money. I think there's companies like yourselves that want to do the A's and B's to get the C's. I
just want to provide as much value, and I just want people coming away from the process thinking, yeah, I've been checked. Ricky's looked at it. It's all good. I'm good to go for another year or two. That's what I want.
Or point them in the right direction. That's what you got to do.
Fred, thank you so much for your time, mate. And I'll speak to you soon.
Definitely. Have a good day.
Cheers. Take care.
And you, bye.